Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all, and I do mean all, of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. We have actually a lot of stuff to get through, so let's just jump right into it. I feel like I say that every week. Let's just jump right into it. I feel like I say that I just rip off Philip DeFranco every week, but we're going to keep doing it, because fuck you, you can't stop me. Silk is a show that's coming to Amazon. And it's going through some struggles. It looks like they've lost a bunch of their writers. So, this is coming from The Ankler. The hotly anticipated Silk Spider Society has let go of its entire writer's room, minus its showrunner and one of the co-executive producers, as the show gets a developmental overhaul. One source close to the series claims that Silk was being refocused with a more male-skewing audience in mind. So yeah, I feel like we never really talk about them, but there are live-action Spider-Man shows coming to Amazon Prime, which, could potentially be pretty massive, but looks like Silk is going through some struggles. They've been working on it since before the writer's strike. We reported on how even after the writer's strike, Amazon stopped working on it, and then and then the WGA sent Amazon a very strongly worded letter saying, "Hey, we're gonna sue you if you don't bring your writers back in to continue working on this show," because for whatever reason they had grounds to sue them, and I don't remember the exact details, but it seems like Amazon is just based on a creative basis. They're going, yeah, this isn't working. The interesting part about what I read there is that they're refocusing it to aim it towards a more male skewing audience. That, of course, begs the question of what exactly does that mean? I guess what was it like before? Was it not male skewing, like a Spider-Man show? Or I guess a Spider-Woman show, because Silk is a spider. She's like a Spider-Woman character, kind of like Gwen Stacy. I guess maybe this was gonna be more of a teenage drama situation. I don't know. Maybe the article mentions how maybe they don't know this for a fact, but the way they kind of describe it, it's they might have been going for a YA situation where maybe it was going to be more Euphoria than Spider-Man or something like that. Maybe they were going for a Miss Marvel type of feel, Disney Channel original series vibe, where they're going to try to go after little girls. Although I personally liked Miss Marvel. I don't know, maybe I have the maybe I have the taste of a little girl, but that kind of vibe, and maybe now they're going for more of a rated R. This isn't your grandpappy's Spider-Man thing. Silk is gonna curse and murder people. I don't know. That is admittedly is a little vague, but at the end of the day, Sony needs some winners. After Morbius and now Madam Web and probably Kraven the Hunter. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I have any faith that that's gonna be any good. Sony needs some wins, and I do think that a Silk show, if it's great, I think could do very well for them on Amazon Prime, and we're gonna get into it in a moment, but the Spider-Man Noir show that they're working on as well, I feel like that could do very well. So, whatever this ends up being, whether it be a male skewing show, which, or they go for whatever they were going for before, I would argue that the most important thing is that it's just good. Just make it a well-made thing, and people will watch it if it's a Spider-Man related thing. Because that's the other thing about everything else that Marvel has been doing, where it's the Venom is just not only is it a bad movie, but it just doesn't have Spider-Man in it. More Mighty Morphin time. The most important thing is that it's a bad movie, but no Spider-Man anywhere. And then Madam Web, they cucked us. They teased us in the trailer. We're like, oh, look, spider people. And then you actually go and watch the movie. No spider people. So I don't know. Honestly, the exciting thing about these shows as well is that they cannot cuck us. How you can't if you're straight up making a Silk show, how they probably won't be able to do a bait and switch and be like, Like, I don't know, like somehow this movie focuses on Aunt May. I don't know. Or I guess Aunt May's coworker. And Silk is just like barely in it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see though. All right, so let's get into the next thing here. So Nicolas Cage is actually in talks. It's looking like that's where they're heading, but looks like he's going to play Spider-Man Noir in live action. So this is coming from the Inkler as well. Also in the works is Spider-Man Noir, where I'm told Nicolas Cage is in serious talks to take on the lead role on the series, which will be set in 1930s New York. So, yeah, if you don't know, Nicolas Cage actually did the voice of Spider-Man Noir in the Spider-Verse films. So that's definitely cute casting, to get him to play him in live action as well. And obviously Nicolas Cage is he's a great actor. There's also just the memeability of Nicolas Cage playing Spider-Man Noir that is probably advantageous for the project. I will say, though, is he too old? Yeah, he's 60. Is he too old to play a spider person? I would say I don't think so. I think that Spider-Man Noir especially, he's supposed to be this, like, gruff, grizzled detective. So I think it can work. And, he's going to be wearing a mask, so all the action stuff will probably be able to be done, with stunt doubles and whatnot. So I think it'll be okay. But yeah, I mean that is a factor that they might want to consider, and not like if the role is written for a young man, then don't just do a stunt casting and get Nicolas Cage just because you want Nicolas Cage in the project. Cast what's good for the scripts that you've written, but I can't speak to those. So we'll see though. It does seem like it's probably gonna happen. All right, next up, The Penguin has wrapped filming. This is of course the HBO Max Colin Farrell Penguin spin-off series from the Batman. And this is confirmed on Instagram. This is one of I think she's like the set designer, like the production designer, or maybe the costume designer. I don't know, but yeah, they posted this on their Instagram. They worked on the show. They're like, how fitting that Catwoman should show up at the office on the last day of shooting The Penguin. Then they have their dog there in like a Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman mask, which is cute, I guess. Yeah, I can't wait for this. I absolutely adored the Penguin. I should say, I absolutely adored the Batman, and Colin Farrell's Penguin was absolutely a standout performance in the movie. Still to this day, like you would never know that that's Colin Farrell. I mean, absolutely gets lost in the role, with all that makeup. It still is funny because it's just funny that they didn't just cast a guy that just looks like that. They're like, we have to get a handsome man and turn him into this. But he's great in the role, so you can't really complain. But yeah, that should be out later this year. So one of DC's only releases of the year. I think they're only releasing, at least as far as like the major stuff from like James Gunn's, everything that they do. Obviously, there are going to be animated movies and stuff, but I think as far as stuff that like James Gunn is in charge of, kind of, it's Joker Folie à Deux, and this. Oh, and Creature Commandos as well, I think is out this year as well. So yeah, we technically are getting the beginning of James Gunn's stuff this year, because technically he didn't work on Joker Folie à Deux. Also, I don't think he would have had any influence over the Penguin, but we are getting Creature Commandos this year, so keep all that in mind, I guess. Next up, let's talk about Jurassic Park. So they finally got a director for their next movie. So it's coming from Variety. Rogue One director Gareth Edwards is in talks to direct an all-new Jurassic World film for Universal. The currently untitled project, scheduled for release on July 2nd, 2025, will mark the beginning of a fresh storyline in the decade-spanning dinosaur series. So, the only Jurassic movie that I've ever seen is embarrassing to say. I've only ever seen Jurassic World. I didn't really like it that much. So I know I have to go back and watch Jurassic Park at some point. And listen, I haven't kept up with the series, but it's like, is there really much more to say here? Like, I don't know. How many more of these movies can you do? I mean, don't get me wrong. They keep on making money. Like the last one made over $1 billion. After like Star Wars movies kept going down and down, 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 down. Marvel has been on its last legs. Stuff like Fast and the Furious, is not really making as much money anymore. The Jurassic Park movies are still making money, so I mean, it makes sense that they keep making them. And Gareth Edwards, he's a pretty solid director. Especially he's especially good at, when you look at something like The Creator, like he's an effective filmmaker, as far as him being able to make these sort of spectacle movies on a tight budget. So I wonder if that's part of why they hired him. Like, I think the smartest thing they could possibly do right now in 2024 is make a Jurassic Park movie for like $120 million. Instead of like all these studios spending like $200+ million on all these movies and them just bombing at the box office. I think it would be really cool for them to use Gareth Edwards and do what he did with The Creator with a Jurassic Park. But we'll see if they bother to do something like that, or if they're just like, oh, we gotta spend $250 million on this stupid dinosaur movie. But we shall see. All right, next up, let's talk about Joker foliage, because actually related to what we were just talking about, we have their budget. It's coming from Variety. Says one insider, they're shopping for Quentin or Cruz with the notion they can use it as a shiny object that is going to be additive when Zaslav sells the company. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why I added that. I don't know what I was smoking. I don't know why I added that line. That has nothing to do. I remember why I put that in there. Okay, sorry. I'll explain it. The budget for Todd Phillips' musical Joker, a Joker sequel, has ballooned to about $200 million. So, sorry, I was going to use this as a jumping off point, but first of all, let's talk about Joker having a budget of $200 million. Ridiculous. What could you possibly be doing with this movie that necessitates $200 million? Are we going to see Batman in this movie? Why do you need that much money? Like, the first movie, I think, only cost like $60 million. Made over $1 billion. I don't understand the mindset of like, oh, we had an insane success on such a low budget. Let's just do that again. Like, why do you not do that? Why do you do like balloon the budget? Because like in some sense, I feel like the first Joker movie was kind of it was kind of I don't want to say a fluke, but I feel like it part of its success may be, and we'll see with the second one, but I feel like part of it may have just been kind of trendy at the time, with the whole controversy with it all and people feeling like they had to see it. A movie like a DC movie like that felt novel at the time, with the whole it being a more of a drama than a comic book than a traditional comic book movie. And like, I don't know that the second one is going to make $1 billion. And when you're giving it a budget of $200 million, you kind of put yourself in situations where it's like, you better hope it makes like $600-800 million. Probably like $600 million to break even, when you take into account marketing and, theater, the theatrical cut and whatnot. I just don't understand why they do that. But the Variety article does point out that it seems like Warner Brothers Discovery is, spending big, right? It says that they're shopping for Quentin Tarantino's new movie. And the fact that they have they have a deal with Tom Cruise. They were kind of writing about how Warner Brothers Discovery is kind of maybe looking to sell. And when you bring on all of this talent and you add all the notoriety, that makes that's going to make your price higher if somebody comes in to buy you. So maybe that's part of it, where they were like, "Hey, Todd Phillips, we're going to give you so much money because we support your creative vision." But maybe it really is just that they're looking to sell the company, so they're just looking at overvaluing their products. I don't know how economics works, but that's what the article was talking about. So maybe. So we'll see. Either way, ridiculous budget. I just don't understand it. Okay. Next up, X-Men 97. So the trailer dropped, and it got a lot of views. Let's look at the Hollywood Reporter. The trailer, X-Men 97, set an internal Disney record as the biggest launch for an animated series on Disney+. So that means that the trailer for X-Men 97 got more views than anything Star Wars related. So that would be like Star Wars The Bad Batch, or like Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7. What other big animated thing has dropped on Disney Plus? I don't even know. So maybe it's not even that that impressive of of a record, but at least as far as Star Wars things, this seems to be more popular than the Star Wars animated stuff. So I think the show's probably going to be pretty big. Obviously, it has a lot of nostalgia. I still have to. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I'm gonna have, because I'm trying to watch the animated series before I watch this X-Men 97. I think I very well might find myself in a situation where I just haven't caught up by the time X-Men 97 shows up, so my coverage on it might be delayed. We'll see. Hopefully not. But yeah, pretty impressive numbers. So next up, it looks like Marvel is still looking for, who they're going to replace Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans with. So it's coming from the Hollywood Reporter. The studio, Marvel Studios, is still searching for characters and actors who can carry its universe forward after the exits of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. So I've seen some people kind of looking at that and being like, "Wait a minute, you still have dude. You have those characters already. You're just not using them, like Shang-Chi and Falcon, the Captain America guy, and you have Wanda." And I feel like people are kind of misquoting that quote, because when you look at it in the context of the article itself, it was like the article was including those characters as far as like characters that Marvel wants to that they're looking for to replace Captain America and Iron Man. It's like it was the context of that quote was within a larger paragraph talking about how Marvel is working on all of the projects that they're working on, looking to replace Captain America and Iron Man. And I have to say this as well. I think that the big miscalculation that Marvel is making is not just making an Avengers movie. And what I mean when I say that is they don't seem to be interested in making an Avengers movie in the vein of the first Avengers movie, right? In the vein of Age of Ultron. When you look at Infinity War and Endgame, those movies are like barely Avengers movies. Those are like just galactic movies where everybody, even if you're not an Avenger, is just in those movies. And when you look at the premise of what, we'll get to this later, but what is, at least we knew to be Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, and when you look at something like Avengers: Secret Wars, that the promise of it just being literally every person in the multiverse coming out and being in the movie, it's like at a certain point, like if you want any of or if you want all of your Avengers movies to be like on the level of Infinity War and Endgame, then you're simply not going to give your new characters time to shine and potentially become your new faces of the MCU. Because Tony Stark and Cap, they became the faces of the MCU, not with their solo movies, but in the Avengers. That's where those two characters shine the most. That's where their rivalry began. That's when their leadership was established. So I really think that they need to just make a regular Avengers movie, an Earth based, earthly threat Avengers movies where Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Shang-Chi and maybe Captain Marvel comes back. Where just your whoever you want to be your main group of Avengers, where they come together and whoever those whatever characters you try to push, where they become the faces of the MCU. But they're just not doing that, and so they're just making a bunch of these solo projects that aren't really leading up to anything. So you're not allowing your new Captain America and your new Iron Man to become known. You're just they're simply not letting them do that. And I do fear that their next two Avengers movies, the scope just might be too big and nobody's going to rise up from the ashes and become the next Cap and Iron Man. But we'll see. That's just my 2 cents. We'll see what they end up doing. All right, next up, let's talk about Thunderbolts. By the way, just to add something to the last thing, it's there are also just a lot of groups. So who the hell are the main players? Who are the Avengers? But yeah. So let's talk about Thunderbolts. We finally have a log line or a premise. So it says that Marvel also hired Joanna Kahlo, the showrunner of acclaimed FX series The Bear, to work on the script for Thunderbolts. The project centers on villains and anti-heroes going on a mission that was supposed to end with their deaths. So this is interesting. Basically confirming that the Thunderbolts just is Marvel's Suicide Squad. But it seems like, whereas in the Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller is sending the villains on the mission just because they are expendable. She doesn't necessarily want them to die. She just doesn't care if they do. This is more so seeming like a situation where, what's her name? The lady on the left, the bad Nick Fury lady. It seems like she's going to be sending them on a mission where she fully is either planning for them to die, or she explicitly, I guess, wants them to die. And maybe the movie is going to play out where they figure that out, and so they have to escape from her grasp or whatever. I don't know if they're going to go so far as to copy Suicide Squad and put bombs in their heads, but yeah, so it's interesting. The weird thing is that Warner Brothers has been trying to push this concept onto us, and they haven't really succeeded. The first Suicide Squad admittedly made money, but it's widely to be considered one of the worst superhero movies of all time. The second Suicide Squad movie, it was actually well received, but it bombed at the box office because that was during the pandemic, and they did the idiotic move of putting all of their movies on HBO Max, if you remember that. So it bombed at the box office, even though it was really well received by the people that watched it. And then you have the Suicide Squad game that just came out, which we'll talk about later, but not a success on any metric. We'll get into that later. So it's interesting that Marvel is now going to try their hand at hopefully finally making this concept work. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it's good. Okay. Next up, let's talk about Kang. This is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. Jonathan Majors in December was found guilty of reckless assault in the third degree and harassment in a Manhattan court after a domestic incident with his ex-partner. Marvel dropped Majors hours after the conviction and is rewriting those movies, which will now either minimalize the character or excise him entirely. The first of the new Avengers movies, due out in 2026, was initially titled Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, but will be getting a new title to remove the character's name, though sources say that even before Major's conviction, the studio the studio was making moves to minimize the character after Quantumania underperformed, grossing $476 million. So I wanted to add all that context in the beginning just so that people remember what happened with the court case. But yeah, I mean, he was found guilty. And when you're found guilty, that seems to be what Marvel was waiting on to ultimately pull the trigger on him. But it seems like they're even going so far as to just completely write Kang out of the Avengers movies. Potentially at least remove him to some degree. And here's the thing. It's definitely the case that Kang did not make a particularly great impression in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but this does go back to one of my things where it's like Kang himself wasn't the problem. Jonathan Majors himself wasn't the problem, although obviously you can't you can't use him anymore, but it's just the execution of the movies that need to be better. Like I don't know that, like, people talk shit about the multiverse. I talk shit about the multiverse. I am personally kind of sick of it, but it's like I also have to always remember that it's like everything everywhere all at once exists. You know, it's not necessarily that the multiverse is inherently bad, but they just haven't utilized it well enough. You know, like Kang isn't necessarily a bad villain. They just didn't utilize him well. So, like, I don't know if the right move is to move away from Kang, is to move away from the multiverse, because at the end of the day, the most important move by far is that they just need to make better movies. And that's really it at the end of the day. So I hope they just kind of keep that in mind or whatever, which I'm sure they are. But I also understand the moving away from Kang in general, though, because even though, yes, it is important that you make good movies, audiences just remember the bad movies that they saw. So moving away from Kang is fine. I think that's totally cool. But yeah, I am curious if they're gonna try to like pivot to like Doctor Doom or something. But yeah, we'll have to see whatever they rename the movie to. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. All right, next up, we have an interesting situation here where Batman Beyond was pitched to Warner Brothers. So one of the directors of Across the Spider-Verse has come out and let us know these like concept artwork for a pitched Batman Beyond film. So here's some more of it, and there's one more picture. I don't know what villain that is. I don't remember him from the animated series. I mean, this looks awesome, and I must admit, I got a gut feeling that this is another situation like Deadpool. Do you remember before the first Deadpool movie came out? There was this Deadpool like test footage. It was like a CGI Deadpool like test footage thing, of like the scene where Deadpool like jumps into the highway and into the car and kills the thugs and whatnot. That was released. That was leaked. It was leaked, and I imagine, I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but I imagine that there was really just Ryan Reynolds that leaked it in order to get fan hype, to finally convince Fox to let him just make a fucking Deadpool movie. I wonder if this is what the director's trying to do here, where the director even said that, like, you know, we pitched this to Warner Brothers and they let us know that there's no way that they're going to make a Batman Beyond movie. And then he mentioned that, like, well, but after we made the pitch, they were like, maybe. And so he says that, and then I'm sorry, I wish I had all these clips pulled up here, or these pictures pulled up here, but then like James Gunn responded to somebody on social media where somebody asked him like, hey, do you like Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the producers on the Spider-Verse movies? Would you ever work for them, or would you ever work with them? And James Gunn responded back, and he said something to the extent of like, oh yeah, I love those guys. I saw them yesterday. I feel like I should have asked them or to work with me on something or whatever. And I look at all of this, I look at all of this, and I'm like, I feel like they're just trying to like gauge and test the waters for how interested people would be in a Batman Beyond movie. And people came out like when you look at the tweets with of this artwork, they were getting like hundreds of thousands of likes, which is like a lot more than I ever imagined. Like a Batman Beyond, like it is a lot more of enthusiasm than I would have expected for a Batman Beyond. So this is what I want. I think that they should get the Spider-Verse guys, obviously, if they want to make it. I think they should get them in and just have them make an Elseworlds animated Batman Beyond movie. Because I don't know if you do it in live action, just because, I mean, first of all, it'll be way more expensive. But second of all, I don't know if I like the idea of knowing like the definitive future of whatever the DCU Batman is going to end up being. Like, I don't want to see him like as an old man and knowing where he's going to end up. That doesn't sound as appealing to me. Although I guess you could also do a live action Elseworlds movie, but do we really need 3 live action Batman at the same time? It's like we're already doing the Robert Pattinson thing. I don't know. I think it's a lot smarter to just do it animated, and obviously get the Spider-Verse guys to work on it if they want to. So I think this is gonna happen. I just have a gut feeling that I think this is gonna happen. So hopefully it does, because I'd love to see it. I definitely loved that show as a kid. So we shall see. Next up, let's talk a little bit about The Ballerina. This is the Ana de Armas John Wick spinoff movie that's coming out. To be clear, this is not a picture of the spinoff movie. This is just I just grabbed a picture of Ana de Armas from the last James Bond movie. And Ian McShane actually talked about it. So let's watch the video here.
And then we go on to Budapest. It's not reshoots, it's new shoots. The new shooting for Ballerina, which is the spin-off with Ana de Armas of the John Wick franchise. You know, it's like they've got to protect the franchise. And obviously, I did it, when was it? We did it about a year ago. We did the movie Ballerina. And they've looked at it, and Chad's come in, the guy who's directed all the John Wick movies, and they want to make it better because they have to protect, because Keanu's in it as well. And it takes place between John Wick 3 and John Wick 4.
Oh.
Ah, okay,
so it's,
right.
yeah. So
I see.
I've
So
just finished watching the Continental, the prequel to... No? Have I said the wrong thing?
Why would I say no? Not wrong. No, they never asked anybody about it. They just went with They just went and did it. And
Did they?
Yeah, I said. And just went and did it with. Somebody asked Kang and me about it. We both went. I don't know. Nobody ever asked us about it.
Thanks for bringing that up, Ant.
That's
And all of a sudden it's going, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
What an awkward end to
They just did a sexy.
Quite liked it.
But yeah, so he's kind of saying that. Well, I guess. You know, the reports came out that earlier this week that they were shooting more stuff. But Ian McShane is kind of confirming that they're not just reshoots. They're adding new scenes because they want to make it better. And this is one of those things where I'm a little nervous about this whole John Wick universe. Because, so if you don't know, Chad Stahelski, as Ian McShane said there, he directed all the John Wick movies. And they've kind of made him... They're trying to make him like the Kevin Feige of the John Wick universe. And it's cool, but I feel like a kind of a problem is that he's also directing the next Highlander movie. And they're saying that they want to turn Highlander into like a multimedia franchise where you have Highlander TV shows and whatnot. And that they also want Chad Stahelski to helm the Highlander stuff. So they're asking him to be the Kevin Feige of 2 different like cinematic universes. And I just feel like that might just be too much, I feel like, for one guy. And especially like clearly like Ian McShane says that he just wasn't even involved with the Continental. None of them were. They just went and made that, and that didn't exactly get great reception, although I haven't personally seen it myself, so I can't say whether it was good or not, but it's a little nervous to hear that. Yeah, then they went and tried to do this Ballerina movie, and it apparently isn't isn't coming out all that well. So I don't know. Like, do we really even need a John Wick cinematic universe? I mean, I get it. The world of John Wick is intriguing, but just make an Ana de Armas action movie. But I don't know. Hopefully it turns out good, and hopefully hopefully it's the movie is so great that it's like, oh, any complaints that you have about a John Wick cinematic universe doesn't matter because this movie is awesome. Hopefully that happens, but we'll see. The reports are not exactly reassuring. So let's get into Harold Potter here. So we have a release year for the Max series. So the Harry Potter TV series is moving forward with Warner Brothers Discovery now targeting a 2026 debut for the high-profile project. I don't remember if anybody ever said that they were targeting a 2025 release window, but now it's 2026 for sure. Yeah, so this is interesting. I mean, I'm still a little like I guess I'm confused that they're not making sequel movies with Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert, whatever his last name is. Because it's like, dude, if you're Warner Brothers Discovery and you're like kind of struggling at the box office, you make sequel movies, and those are gonna be $1 billion. That's $1 billion movie easy. You know, if the movie's terrible, then any future sequels might suffer at the box office. But you bring back that cast, that's an easy $1 billion at the box office. So I'm honestly a little, and I figured that they were going to do that just because it would make so much money. So I'm a little surprised that they're remaking it as a TV series, which, don't get me wrong, it's going to be massive on HBO Max, but streaming shows just, I don't know how much even a Harry Potter streaming service, I don't know that's going to cause so many new subscriptions that that they'll make a bunch of money off of that. Whereas you just make a movie and it makes $1 billion. So I don't know. I'm surprised by that, but I also wonder if maybe J.K. Rowling is just like, listen, we tried with the Fantastic Beasts. We tried to do something outside of the books. For the next thing, I want to play it safe. Let's just readapt the books. And maybe at some point, J.K. Rowling will make like a sequel novels. Maybe she'll just write them. And then at that point, maybe they can bring back Daniel Radcliffe or whatever. But yeah, I can also understand that maybe they just didn't want to create new stories that haven't been made into books. I after the failure of Fantastic Beasts. But we'll see if the show ends up being any good. All right, so next up, let's talk about the Hedge Knights, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, whatever this show is called. It's an HBO spinoff that we also have a release year for this. So it's coming from Seeking Alpha. George R.R. Martin is in pre-production for the new spinoff, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which will premiere in late 2025 on Max. So I don't really know anything about this book. So I was reading a little bit about it, and apparently the Hedge Knight, or a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms or whatever, it's about like a knight, obviously, and it's set 100 years before Game of Thrones. And it's like a book, I guess, that has 3 like stories within it. I know that Game of Thrones fans, I think, were excited about this, so I guess it's it's a good book and it's an interesting story. I just don't know anything about it, and I'm kind of okay with that. I don't need to know anything about it. Surprise me, once the trailer comes and I watch the show. But I will say, I'm really enjoying House of the Dragon, so hopefully that level of quality continues and this ends up being like a surprise hit. Yeah, we'll see. Let's talk about Suicide Squad. This is actually our last story of the day. So this is also coming from Seeking Alpha. So actually, all of this, as well as the HBO or the Game of Thrones update and the Harry Potter update, that all came from like an investor's call that Warner Brothers Discovery had. But oops, I messed up this. I messed up this this graphic. Give me one moment. All right, my bad. This year, Suicide Squad, one of our key video game releases in 2024, has fallen short of our expectations since its release earlier in the quarter, setting our games business up for a tough year over a year comp in Q1. Year over year comp in Q1. I'm pretty sure what that means. I'm a moron, but I'm pretty sure what that means is that at this time next year, Hogwarts Legacy had come out. So year over year, Suicide Squad is making a massive disappointment for their video games division. And listen, I mean, people just didn't respond to the game, man. I didn't buy it just because I love Rocksteady. I love the Arkham trilogy. There's a lot of abuse that I can take, but honestly, it was after Marvel's Avengers, after Gotham Knights. I was just kind of at the point where I'm like, dude, $70 is a lot of fucking money for me. I'm not dropping $70 on this game. This is not a game that I want to play. And I will say, I don't even necessarily care about the fact that, spoiler alert, in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. I don't care about the fact that they did that. I don't care about the fact that the Justice League got disrespected. It's like, oh, Captain Boomerang peed on the Flash. Oh, how dare they disrespect this character. I'm just like, why would you play a Suicide Squad game where you kill the Justice League and you go into it expecting for the Suicide Squad to kill the Justice League respectively or respectfully? I mean, like that's such a weird thing to complain about for a game like this. The main reason why I wasn't interested in it was just because I don't want to play a live service game. And I watched a playthrough of it on YouTube. And it just doesn't look like it's fun to play. The story is bad. It doesn't end. I'm like, no, fuck off. I don't want to play it. I don't want to spend $70 on a live service game that has a bad story, that doesn't do anything. It doesn't say anything. Massive disappointment after how incredible the story of Arkham Knight was. I was just like, I'm good on that, respectfully. And it's depressing. I mean, it really is. The fact that, the co-founders left, like a year ago, I think, during the development of the game, like the founders of the company left, and I'm sure like a lot of the staff must have probably left over the years, over the course of the 9 years that they've been making this game. And I mean, again, it's just depressing that we waited 9 years and this is what we got from Rocksteady. It's a trend now of these celebrated single player developers that, whether they themselves wanted to make it or like their publisher overlords are like, we need a Fortnite, we need a live service game, so you're gonna make one, even though these aren't the types of games that you make, but you're gonna make one. And this is the anthem that killed BioWare. This is the game that killed Rocksteady. Because Rocksteady's not Rocksteady anymore. It's different. I've had to kind of in the stages of grief or whatever, I'm at acceptance. Rocksteady is dead. Now, I'm not saying that this new Rocksteady can't come back with a great single player game. Maybe they just make a Superman game in order to appease the fans. But like the fact that it's not the same Rocksteady. So it's depressing, and it was based on this quote. We don't have exact sales data for it, but it hasn't done well. Like it is a disappointment. Unless it sold like 4 million copies or something, and because of Hogwarts Legacy, Warner Brothers Discovery wanted it to be another Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, maybe that's the case, but honestly, like the one metric that we can track is like Steam player counts, and I don't think that the player counts for this game was ever massive. So that is one piece of data that we do have, and it's basically dead right now, which is bad for a live service game. So like it seems like anybody that did play it, they played through the campaign, and then they're like, I don't feel like playing in this anymore. Because actually, I remember that happened with Marvel's Avengers. It's like, I played the campaign, and then they were like, keep playing the game now. I don't want to. I'm good on that, actually. So it seems like it's the same thing happened here, where the post game content isn't compelling. And again, when I got to the end of the story, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I don't want to spoil it, but it's like, are you this is what the post game content is? You just didn't finish the story. Yeah. Anyways, game sucks. Killed Rocksteady. I'm sad. Let's get into the next topic. So yeah, let's get. This is actually the one thing I've watched this week. So, I started watching the Netflix Avatar live action adaptation extravaganza bonanza. So here's the thing. I'll say I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm like in the middle of the 4th episode. I like the show. I feel very similarly to how I felt about the Percy Jackson show, to where it's good. It's relatively inoffensive. There's nothing like terrible about it in my mind. It's just it just doesn't have the sauce, It's not made with the level of excellence that I would have wanted from a live action Avatar series, Some of the performances aren't very good. I don't want to pick on children too much. I'm just kidding. I love bullying children. A lot of line delivery from like the Aang actor, and some of the like, I would argue Sokka maybe. Katara's pretty good for the most part. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I don't love the actor that plays Iroh. I don't know. He doesn't have necessarily the same warmth of Iroh, I feel like. Zuko's fine, but nobody's really like nailing their roles. Like, I'm not enamored by any of them, if I'm just being completely honest. But I think also a lot of that also probably just has to do with the dialogue. A lot of the dialogue isn't great, I feel like. A lot of exposition. A lot of them telling us things instead of showing them to us. Another thing that I don't want to go too hard on them on, but there are a lot of iffy visuals. There is a lot of there's a lot of them standing in front of the volume. If you've seen Star Wars, you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen some recent Marvel stuff, you know what I'm talking about. And there's a lot of that, but I'm also just kind of forgiving on that front, because this is obviously an expensive show to make. I mean, it is. You can see the money on display. There's a lot of bending. They don't hide from the bending. There's a lot of appa. One of the things that I was wondering about, how like Avatar is a globe-trotting show. It's like, are they really going to show them going to like new locations every episode? And like, yeah, they're doing that. Well, technically they stay in the same location from episode 3 to 4, but there's a lot, like they get on appa and they fly off, and it looks pretty good. But sometimes the visuals are iffy. But overall, for a TV show, I think it looks great. But then it just doesn't have the sauce. Now, one thing I will say, it's also it diverts a lot from the animated series. I personally think it's still faithful in that I think it captures the spirit, and the themes that the original series have. That I'll say that because I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that the episodes in large part are very much like mashups of different episodes. So like, it'll be one of those things where like I'll spoil this one thing. I don't think this is a big spoiler, but like they'll go to Omashu and they meet Jet at Omashu instead of meeting him in a random village somewhere. And so like one of the episodes is just a mashup of the Omashu episode and the Jet episode rolled into one. Actually, it's even a mashup of like another episode as well, actually, now that I think about it. And it's all in one, everything that happens in that episode just happens in Omashu. And I don't mind that personally. Like it's one of those things where it's like the original show is the original seasons of episode count of the animated series was like 20 to 21 episodes a season. 25 minutes for each episode. This is an 8-episode season where each episode is like about an hour long. And so each episode is just like one situation. It's not like they go to a new location in an episode. So yeah, I'm personally okay with how they're handling it. But I mean, if you're one of these people that like, you just want like exact recreations of something in live action and you can't stand it if they change things, I mean, you might hate the show. I personally think it's fine how they're handling it. I totally understand it, and I think they're doing a good job of like they're doing the point of the Jet episode. Like they get that point across. The point of certain other things. They get the point across. I don't want, or I guess I'll say, yeah, they meet the Kyoshi warriors and they switch around how they handle that. But I think they get the point across, oh yeah, there was also the controversy, I will say as well, about how, one of the actors came out and they were like, yeah, we made Sokka less sexist in this. I did see how that played out, and I'm not gonna lie, they did change it. They did change that. I didn't mind how they executed it, though. When it comes to Kyoshi Island, I was like, you didn't need to change how it happened. You didn't need to change it. Like Sokka's sexism, I think it would have been fine to do that in 2024. I don't think it's like it's weird. Like by minimizing Sokka's sexism, it's like they think they're being more progressive, but they're actually being less woke, if you want to use modern day culture war terminology. Like, it's inherently less woke because, yes, Sokka was sexist, but it was always portrayed as a bad thing that he was sexist. So very, very weird culture war stupid conversation, but like they didn't need to make the change that they made. But I still thought that the way it was executed well. So I'll say that much. Yeah, like that's the thing. I don't mind the changes that they've made. I think they're fine. I think they work thematically. I just wish the show was overall of a higher quality, which is just kind of not. But I don't mind it. I'm enjoying watching it. So if you're a fan of Avatar and you're willing to just accept it for what it is and judge it on its own merits, if you're going to get triggered every time you see something different, I would encourage you to take a step back and ask yourself this question. If I didn't know with the show, would I think this is bad? And I think that's how you should judge adaptations personally. I'm not in the hyper. I'm generally not the person that's going to autistically be like, yeah, definitely in the show, and you do it exactly like the show. I want an exact recreation of the show. I'm not one of these people. I think as long as you capture the spirit of the show, or of the source material, or not, if you want to do something completely different, I'm totally fine with that. This I think is going it has the approach of, we want to capture the spirit of the animated series, but because of the nature of our show, we're mixing and matching stuff because it just makes more sense for our 8-episode season. They are doing an interesting thing though. Beyond doing the mishmashing, they're like straight up adding other elements in that I think is weird, and I'm kind of have to wait and see how they play out. I don't want to spoil what it is though. But yeah, overall, I recommend checking it out. You know, if you're, I think, get to like the second episode. By the second episode, you will know if you like the direction of the show. I'll say that much. And yeah, I think that if you've never seen any Avatar anything, I think you'll probably enjoy it. I imagine you would. Like it's just a solid show. So yeah, that's really all I've watched this week. Again, I'm very busy. I need to do something. I need to find more time to watch more things. But either way, won't burden you with that whole nonsense. But yeah, let me know what you thought of Avatar if you've seen it. Let me know what you think about any of the topics that we've discussed today. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.